First fight, Slavoj against Mamanci.
Hello and welcome to Inside the List. This week we're going to be doing a preview for Carolina Carnage. I'm joined by my co-host Jakub, and this time we're joined by our special guest Xander from Pale Horse, also of the Buhurt podcast fame. So we're going to talk everything fights and Carolina Carnage this week. So welcome. Thanks very much for joining us.
Yep, I'm very happy that Xander joined us because honestly, it feels like Pale Horse is the most exciting team right now in US. Not just because you have the most media presence, but also your fight style is quite interesting. At least to us Europeans, it's not all the cuddling, but we will talk about that. So,
I'm
Xander,
excited.
tell us, how did you join? How did you start with Buhurt? Honestly, at least from the start.
Well, so I started training in 2020. I found the Knights Hall, which I'm about like 2 hours driving from. And my first time in armor was actually not until like April that next year. So we went about 8 months of just going and doing soft kit and being around the culture to get to see if it was something I wanted to invest in. And then I got really lucky, and my coach at the time, Dustin, had a similar body type to me and had just been upgrading his armor. So I purchased my armor from him, and I did like 20 to 24 different armored events that year from May when I got that armor, which was April was the first time trying on somebody else's. Then May I took my first kit to the field, and we were doing like pickup scrimmage melees and mini pro fight tournaments, and not a lot of traveling, but a lot of just home practice. And like we would have crowds, and those crowds we would put on a show in the capacity that there was a story that the event was telling. So like you'd have like one no-name team and another no-name team, and they put different jerseys on them basically, but they were tabards with an actual full team, like Outlaws versus like Barons or something. I can't remember the names, but so we would all have that reason to push ourselves, like, because you don't want to, die in front of a crowd for no reason and look dumb, right? But like at the same time, it's really enjoyable, it's really fun. So I was given effectively the opportunity to fight almost every weekend for like 2 years. And during that time, what I was finding out was that the communities were significantly larger than just those local areas. And we had like Iron Lions as a team that we started fighting against for the first time, the American side.
Yeah.
So I started traveling, and when I was traveling, I was noticing like there's so many different types of Buhurt because people are communicating, but we're not able to share everything verbatim. There's not like the same way to practice, the same way to create a club, the same way to create a team everywhere in America, everywhere in Europe. I know I've heard more consistency in Europe, but then maybe that's just because I talked to Danny and he's like, oh, everything's going great. We love it. So, and then Daniel Winters as well, who is like, oh, we have the full club, we have everything, and it's like very much the same style for you guys. So in the States, or at least on my side, because I'm in New England, for just some context for anybody who isn't familiar with where I'm from. So I'm from Rhode Island, New Hampshire, like the northern East Coast, right? So
for us, it's above New York.
Yeah, New York, pretty much. I grew up in New York, so
okay.
New York's pretty close.
So,
so I started traveling like 7 hours, different clubs, and realizing that Buhurt wasn't the same everywhere. And I was like, I want to fight these guys all the time. I want to travel. I want to fight everybody in the nation. And I saw a couple of people who were loosely part of clubs, and we started merging together, right? And then that was where like Pale Horse kind of split from
so
where
it's
I
like
started to train.
Wandering mercenaries met each other on the tournaments and talked to each other, and maybe we can start something of our own. So that's interesting because it's kind of like, to me it sounds like an all-star that would be maybe Dominus, or in our context, in my context, Czech Lions or Polish are known for doing all-stars, but it's for one specific tournament. And otherwise they are tied into clubs that are like tied to a place, like a certain town or part of a country. So you just that's not how Pale Horse works, right? It's just you started from the bottom, not picking good people from each club, but by not being tied to a place, but making like a merc company.
Yes.
I never heard about that.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. It's been really cool to see how our story has formed over time, because it was just us. It was just we were there saying like we want more from the fighting we're doing. We want more from the clubs that we're in, and for me, a lot of that was like the ability to travel and fight on those teams that are making, like going across the country and like going to big tournaments like Carnage. And the guys that I had met were around clubs that like weren't really training at the energy level that they were looking for. They weren't really bringing a lot of that ferocity and fire to practice that they were looking for. One sec, I gotta pause.
I'll edit this out. No worries. I'm back. No worries.
That way I'll be cut it. I was just getting distracted because I was hearing a lot of voices from outside, so I couldn't tell if it was coming through the camera or not.
Yeah, no worries. I will edit it out.
All right. Where should I start?
So people were not getting the
intensity
amount of
of
heat
training.
and intensity and competition.
Perfect. So the people that I met, they weren't getting what they were looking for in Buhurt out of their local clubs. And so it wasn't exactly me who went there and said, "Oh, I'm going to just find people." It was like three of us got together because we were sitting there going like, I'm thinking the same thing you're thinking, and why don't we just fight more together? So that was Brandon Sauter and Michael Giuliani. Brandon Sauter and I are still part of the team now, and I'm currently the captain, and Giuliani has stepped away just because of, his own reasons with Buhurt and anything like that. And so from the beginning, we just wanted to have the kind of competition that we saw people having. Like we, in a lot of ways, like we have access to all y'all's fighting. We get to see what's going on down south and out west for us here. But it wasn't like, it was like, we want to do that Buhurt. Like we want to fight as hard as we can. And so over time, like I just grabbed Michael Sloma. I was like, hey, you want to fight? Let's fight. Like, let's fight more often. We're not getting the chances that we want to have, And then we had a guy named Killian who he's still with us now. He has a club that's still building. So he decided to join because his club isn't at the point where he wants it to be, even though he focuses all his energy there. Blade is down in Texas. And at the time he was like 8 hours from the Warlords, and the Warlords were just a little like, not to talk for him, but it's like a little too far, like trying to make sure that he's getting those chances he wants to have, right? And like I said, let everybody kind of talk for their specific story, but just in how spread out we are, Texas is like 36-hour drive for me. We're not close at all. We can't train on the weekends. And then Grant Hendrickson is up in Portland, where the Daniel Krug was training when he was more in the sport. And I had just noticed like, hey, like he's looking for a team. I really liked fighting with him when where were we fighting? I forget it, but I met him at a tournament myself. So like we just started to pick up the people that when you looked them in the eye and they were like, I want to do what you are doing. I want to do what we want to do, the same thing. And it was just like, oh, okay, cool, let's do it. Like that was how it started in the beginning. And we had a lot of people, like I haven't told the story in a while, if I'm honest. So like we had a lot of people who were around us giving us support and assistance in like when we were going to these traveling events, like people that were just consistently at these events. Like we'd found ways to create what's like a weird mercenary band that would show up at different places, right? Because like that's what it was for us, is like a lot of these guys had never gone a certain distances, and like I had traveled, and we would just like plan it out. Who's the captain? We don't know. Like we had all 8 of us. We're all like there was no specific captain in the beginning. Like we would all talk everything out, which was a lot of freaking work, but it made good culture, you know. And then,
Right.
but then we had fun. So
Yeah, that's honestly like such a good concept. Like you met through the will to be the best, not hey, I maybe want to fight. This guy puts in a lot more work than the other one, and you all work, and it shows on the results. Like you are pretty young in a sport to compare to a lot of fighters. Like for instance, me, I do this sport for 13 years, and only recently I got to really high level, I would say. And you just got here in half the time, so it has to work.
yeah,
So good.
we started
good
in
concept.
2023. Pale Horse was our original. That was like with Grapes of Wrath was kind of where we were, and that is why I brought up the Iron Lions earlier, because they run that tournament every year. They won't this year, but they have for 5 years at this point. And we had merked on the same team right then. And after that, you know, we all had our own obligations. So after that, we had Carnage that year where we fought in the silver tier. And that's where there's a lot of really interesting footage from that particular event. And we posted it on Instagram and various little clips and such. But like it was really fun to be there for that first Carnage, because you saw the team go from a concept to a reality where, you know, they broke out of brackets and we lost to the team, the Berserkers, which we'll probably talk about from the gold tier discussion on Carnage later. But at that moment, I wasn't fighting on the team because my obligations were to the Executioners. So I was fighting in the gold tier list with Executioners for my first time. And at that juncture, I forget what teams were there exactly, but I know like that's where I first got to fight Dominus, for example, like as an individual. And because of that, like that next Carnage, right, we went still trying to figure out who we were, still trying to figure out what type of team. Like we know we want to be the best, but that was really it. But like in the wanting to be the best, our goal was not that big. Like it wasn't, let's all get as many of the best people as we can. It's just, I see you want to do what I want to do. I see that, like, let's make it happen, right? So in that, it pushed us to now, my goal is to be the best, right? And I'm leading the team that way. But in that difference of like folks that were new to the sport, like every single person who was on the squad at the time was like 3 years or less. Like I had the most experience in 2023, 2024 at about 3 years in armor. So it does have that interest of coming into the sport and seeing people who've been around it for like 14 years, right? So, but the social media stuff just kind of made sense to make sure like you could share it and it's fun to make cool clips and stuff. So
yeah, you used that really well. Daniel, do you have any question before I formulate my thought?
I mean, it's good to be honest, because it sounds very similar to an experience I had here. We had Primus, and that might mean something to you, Jakub, but maybe not necessarily you, Xander. But
I haven't thought, but I know about it. Yeah.
But we, you know, in the UK, we had something similar. There were a lot of clubs that weren't at the level or ability to go abroad and fight at the tough tournaments in Europe and so on. But there were fighters that were at that level. And Primus for us in the UK was effectively that pale horse. You know, we all came together from other clubs. We had a willingness to travel. And we would, you know, we'd travel and fight all over Europe back when it, you know, in the old BL days and before BL imploded. You know, we got the invite to Next, and we got the invite to what would have been the 12s, the Ultima. And, you know, for us at the time, our domestic teams with the numbers that we had and the experience couldn't necessarily support that. So yeah, to me it's a little bit nostalgic because it's very similar. You know,
was that outside of White Company, or was White Company part of that?
Yeah. So initially it was outside of White Company. Towards the end, so we were talking when Primus won Way of Honor, I think it was 23. We had a couple of the White Company guys come across because their rosters had dwindled a little bit. So when Primus won Way of Honor, we had, you know, Dan Winter was there, Bohumil was on Primus for a time, and Primus was that kind of UK version of Pale Horse, where if you're willing, you're able, and you're committed, you could come into that squad, and then we would send teams to your Way of Honors and to your Zanakins or to your Carcassonnes or wherever really. And that the team did really well. But what it did is it allowed all of us to grow and get that international top level competitive experience. And now we're at a point where most of us are back in our domestic clubs, and our domestic clubs are doing these events, but Primus still exists and is there for the next generation of guys to do the same thing. So it's a similar story for me really, and it's nice to see that it works, right? It's a winning solution when everybody's on the same page and understands where you're all wanting to go with something. You're willing, you're committed, and you're able. You turn up at events and you do what you can do.
Yeah, and that's basically what I wanted to ask is, are Pale Horse guys still like part or training with some other club, or it's just the whole completely separate thing and they don't train with other people, they just do their own thing and then meet up on tournaments or trainings or whatever?
So it's different for everybody because it has to be, right? Like we're so spread out that every area is its own club worthy area. Mm-hmm. So I would say three or four of our guys have their own local club. Either they help run it or they are like adjacent to assisting in any of the major functions like coaching, training, etc. Mm-hmm. And in those clubs, a lot of them are really in their infancy, even younger than Pale Horse, right? So it's like, or they're a club that, the shift needed to go in a more competitive direction to be relevant to training there, like, because we have some, like, we had a couple places that they show up and they train and it's fun and like we get some opportunities, but like I can't drive 6 hours for like an hour and a half of practice, right. Like I'll practice in my backyard for 3 hours, instead. Sure. So when it comes to having like that local opportunity, it just is different for everyone. For me, I go up and train with Killian, who's in the North Horde. And like I said, we travel to like show fights and such like that. And I have my partner, Carly, trains as well. So like we're just training together with each other. So
yeah, that's also good to have someone so close to be able to practice with. So that was like approach to the team structure. Do you have? Would you say you have some specific approach to fighting itself, like how you approach fights, and you say, "Oh, I want to, I don't know, I want to focus on teamwork, and teamwork wins us fights," or I just want to brutalize people so they are scared of us.
and interestingly enough,
I love that.
Didn't Pale Horse at one point just want to be a two-handed lineup?
Yeah.
Because I remember weapons checking you guys at Carnage maybe last year, and it was the most two-handers I have ever had to check at a Marshall table for one team. Like
there's a photo of that moment, by the way. Yeah. I'll see if we can dig it up. So there's literally we go up to the table and it's just thunk, like freaking 15 of them, I think, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of pole arms, a lot. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I remember you guys wanted to be like a lineup that pretty much just runs two-handers, right? And do as much swinging as possible.
So that was a big part of the comedy, like, so that was a big part of the start of the team, right? So in the beginning, like the only way you can truly do Buhurt and not go mental is to just like fall into the fun of like, I'm hitting my friends with axes. Like, I don't know about you, but that's fun. Like, I'm just saying, like, and it hurts, yes, but like you get used to blocking it, you get used to shirking it. Like, yes, it still hurts. But like we were mostly only fighting at tournaments, right? And like at tournaments, that's when you take out the two-handers, right? Our goal was never to like hit people so hard in practice or like anything like that. But we're at tournaments, like this is a place where two-handed axe is a viable part of the game. This is like where competition is trying your best and hitting your hardest and like learning how to build that teamwork aspect, learning how to grapple while you're fighting each other really is what it was really cool. So sorry, that sounds like really rudimentary, because to me, like, that is all that basic Buhurt is. But a lot of the guys, as they were coming into the sport, the only opportunities they got to really fight was at tournaments. So that's just where we went. And so, yes, two-handed axes became the culture, the fun of it, and it will continue because, you know, we have one of our favorite weapons. It's Blade's axe, but I've used it as well. It has a notch in it for every bone that it's broken. I think we're on 7 or 8. So, you know, and that one's only like 3.5 feet. It's not even 36 centimeters. And I don't know, is that the right amount of math equation there? There we go. Boom. I know, but I'm trying to. You guys use inches?
It's a long axe.
This is American episode. You do.
Oh, okay, perfect. Whew. Okay, so yeah, so it's not even 4 feet, but it's designed to be able to be grappled with, but it's still a two-handed axe. It looks like a one-hander, but it's long enough. So I know, like, it just kind of grew out of the fun we were having, you know.
I like that, and I asked that specifically because it very much reminds me of how Czechs approach fights, and when I watched Pale Horse from the start, it felt like, who put European, or more specifically Czech or Polish team into America? I wanted to go through the roster and see some you know, Eastern European surnames there, but it grew up out of the fun. That's great. But yeah, sounds good, and it's great to see that it wasn't that I wasn't wrong in that assumption. So we already briefly touched upon the tiers. So I talked with Danny about that last episode, and before we get to the Carnage and what's the tier 1 and tier 2 there, how are they decided in America? Like, what decides what's tier 1, what's tier 2?
So we actually have a tier 3 this year as well. Okay. What decides it is Larry. I mean, like, I can answer the question deeper than that, but at the end of it, it is more of a, I've seen all the, like, Larry as the organizing leader of our area for BI specifically, or America, you know, BI. He is watching as many fights as possible. He's at as many turns as he can, and then there's a natural stratification due to having BI points for this year in particular. And so we have a pretty good idea of like what team should be a 1, 2, and then subsequently 3, just due to then how many competitors there are. There's just so many teams that want to do it, and it makes 3 different individual relevant, interesting tournaments. So start with points, and then it's discretion. So funny enough, like, this year was really difficult to decide because there was a bunch of teams that made it on points but didn't feel like they were ready to fight in that gold tier bracket. And there were teams that usually fight in the gold tier bracket that weren't there in the beginning. And that was a very interesting change because those teams hadn't been fighting for BI. So under just strictly BI rules, the top tier points didn't really make sense. So the silver tier is birthed out of all your teams that are pretty much gold tier, in that they're competitor level, they're a relevant match. You know, you're not having 5-1 for every single matchup, right? 5-1 at the end of the round, you know, but also some of the teams in there were just significantly better because of just the way that the points worked for tier 2. So that's why they moved some of those guys over. So that's Executioners, and I think Northblood got moved from tier 2 to tier 1 just because it didn't make sense at the time, and still doesn't. And then some of the teams that are in tier 1 have now decided not to go to this particular Carnage, so on and so forth. So it goes through a big, long discussion process where it kind of makes sense in the beginning, and then it has to be unique. You have to know what's going on. You have to like literally have conversations with those teams. You have to be willing to say, like, can I, you know, say honestly, like, hey, my team is missing a couple of its really core members. Like, I think we should be in silver this year, something like that, you know, like we're on a rebuilding phase, blah, 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 blah. So when you aren't able to access that consistent conversation, which Larry usually posts publicly, for example, right? And you just have to be following it. If you're not following it, at the end of it all, there's no real numerical structure that goes into deciding it. But I will tell you, every single person I've ever talked to has always loved fighting in the silver tier when we only had two. Those fights were explosive. They were awesome. You were seeing new guys like trying their hardest, and some teams you'd never expect to push to the top are starting to just ripping people apart. And like there's this comical image where on the right side you have, a game of chess, and it's like Buhurt and everybody's trying to do the right judo move, and you're trying to sneak by, and like the second you touch that other fighter, like you're now locked into one of you gets taken down, and it happens very quickly, and it's not very interesting to potentially the crowd. And then on the other side, you have like this crazy cloud of like Buhurt fun, smashing and bashing, throwing people outside the list and all that, like as the silver tier, which is what people were really excited about, because there's a lot of inexperienced fighters fighting each other, but at the same level where it's that balance. So you're getting a more dynamic fight. So 3 tiers got birthed out of that, and here you are. I love Buhurt, so
Right.
to me, I'm just like, it's gonna be awesome.
So I'm quickly gonna repeat some of the points probably that I made last episode, but let's put aside time schedule, because I think you can make work tiered events and not tiered events with the same amount of team in the same time period. You just have to kind of work around it a little bit. But what, at least when the Buhurt was starting, or the Buhurt as we know it now, yeah, we got our ass kicked so bad every time by Russians and Ukrainians. But and it wasn't fair, or yeah, it was fair, but the skill disparity was so enormous. It wouldn't, if there were tiers, nobody would be near them, or maybe Americans when they came over, or whatever, or Polish, of course, at the time. But from those fights, even though we got our asses kicked so bad, we learned the most, and you could see tournament from tournament, enormous jump in skill. And I think tiered events take that away from people, because when you don't have this opportunity to meet those best teams and learn from them by getting smashed by them, you lose that opportunity. And yeah, it's gonna hurt, but you will know not to make the same mistake that got you set down there again. But if you are fighting like schmoes and B-League fighters all the time, you are not punished for the same mistakes you would be punished for when fighting those tier 1 quote-unquote teams. So I just wanted to ask you if you feel like it's without question a good thing, or do you think it takes away something?
So it does take away something. I absolutely agree with that opinion, and hearing it from your perspective gives me more insight on like what you're seeing when we're talking about tiers. So if I were to give you what a year looks like for me fighting, which I'm not going to give you the whole thing, but just to summarize it, Carnage is the only event we go to where there's tiers. Every other event throughout our year is a bracket system, either like pools or a round robin, like whatever, how currently BI is our major focus, but there are other leagues that are doing just the same as far as brackets are concerned.
Yeah.
So when we go to Carnage is kind of like the Super Bowl for the leagues. So like for us, like, or the big event of the year, our way of honor, when we are having our regular events, like the warlords will the dragoons. I'm historical now, current.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're now in current brain. The dragoons will be consistently traveling up to fight with us when we meet halfway across the country. Kenyas will come down a couple times throughout the year. So like, and we as Pale Horse, are frequently on the East Coast, so we're meeting up 4 to 6 times a year outside of Carnage at tournaments. So at that point, like you're seeing the teams that always get medals, and then the teams that are never getting medals. And then at Carnage, it gives you, out of the teams that are not getting medals, who is actually pushing to learn as much as they can from the teams that are. If I'm just like reverse engineer it, like in that way, we're thinking about how tiers in a vacuum absolutely do limit you completely, because that's why we've seen teams not getting any better, is because there's not as many opportunities for them to fight people that can train them, that can work with them, that they can learn from. And you're learning all from on your own or from other guys that are just as equally skilled or less than you, right? So I mean, that's how like Pale Horse got our chances to get better, is just showing up at tournaments, right? And just fighting our way through. So in a lot of ways, like what you're saying is exactly the structure that you're reinforcing and recommending. The tiers is more like, from how I understand it in Carnage and in how Larry set it up, like the tiers are an opportunity for that particular annual growth period. Like, what have you gotten out of this year? Like, and now you're on a more fair playing field. Like the teams that go from the bottom of silver to the top of silver in 1 year is really cool to watch, and vice versa. Like, because you're not going to go from like the bottom of gold to the top, but you'll go from the bottom of gold to the middle, or But it's interesting, right? And like I think each tier, not to like put it back on tiers in the positive for specifically Carnage, but like that's kind of the point, is that we only look at tiers in Carnage. It's nowhere else for us.
Right. Well, that actually made me realize that there is a bit more difference between US and Europe than I probably realized, because, well, now we don't meet them, and God bless the Russians, but not that I wouldn't like to fight someone as skilled as they are, but the war and whatever. I don't want to see them, but that's for a different discussion. But it sounds to me like you have more opportunities to meet those top teams, and especially when the sport was starting, we had like maybe one, when we were lucky, 2 tournaments where we could actually meet those top teams, and rest of the tournaments are like very locally focused. That not Way of Honor is an exception, but for most of the tournaments you have teams from 2, maximum 3 countries. That's the most of the tournaments, like 80%. So yeah, it sounds like in America you get more chances to meet them outside of the Carolina Carnage. So yeah, that actually makes sense to me.
I think the other thing as well is comparing, European Buhurt to US, just in terms of the size and scale. It is European Buhurt and the US. The US is the size of Europe, if not bigger. So, these teams will meet each other depending on location. It might be the same as you, for example, Kuba going to a tournament in Germany. That might be Xander going 5 or 6 hours to a local tournament, fighting the Iron Lions and whoever else shows up, right? And that happens in your season regularly. And then Carnage is a conference event because it's the biggest event in North America, the same way that for Europeans, Way of Honor this year will be the conference event again, because it's going to be the biggest event for Europeans, albeit with some international attendance. So yeah, I think there's some big similarities between Europe and the US in terms of the size and the scale and the events that happen, but the tiered system we only see in very small instances. And for Carnage, it's purely because of the success of the event. How popular that event is leads and kind of necessitates, in this instance this year, 3 tiers, which just shows how big it's grown over the years, right? But most of the time everybody's just turning up, fighting everybody else, seeing where everybody shakes out, and then go home. So it's good.
Yeah, we had 31 teams last year, 31 men's teams and 9 women's teams last year. So
well,
it's like
I will talk about this again probably when we have our Australian episode, but yeah, it's another point. But I know it's a whole different thing, Australia and US. But they had Burley Griffins. I don't know if they won tournaments, but definitely they placed very high among competition of teams that were in Tier 1 at their nationals. and at those nationals they were in tier 2, and they dominated the tier 2, at least from what I saw, and they got gold, and they got invited to invitational, but they were tier 2. So I don't know, you cannot probably speak to that, but I just cannot, as a European, I cannot wrap my hand around this. But
Yeah.
you explained it quite well. It makes much more sense to me now.
Thank you. Yeah,
So
each conference is just so large that the goal is to try to send our best teams, right? Not like waste anybody's time, because also it's way more fun when the country comes together and says, here's as best as we can give you, and it works out, you know what I mean? And when you don't do that right, that sucks. So I know everybody's got like a similar goal when it comes to the competition level. So hopefully what, the Australians, their conference did, or their group did, sends a really good team,
Yeah.
hopefully. I'm
Yeah,
sure it will. They're really good at that.
I mean, hey, I'm not at all saying that Burley Griffins don't belong to Invitational. That's absolutely not my point, because they are led by Bryce Lightbody, and that guy is a legend. I'm looking forward so much to meet him again. I don't know if he remembers me, but yeah, we scrapped. So yeah, looking forward to that again. So with that discussion done, let's go through tier 1 teams at Carnage. If you could, because why I want to include this segment, even though I don't know if you can talk about every single team there and give us like short history and what they are known for. I watch the sport a lot, but I still know about like maybe 4 American teams in total, like some more detailed things, and that's Ordo Draconis, because they were known very well before. From I think they went to Dynamo, then they were at the Prime or Next or something like that. And they did quite well. And then, of course, Dragoons, of course, Pale Horse, and Knyaz, and that's probably all I can name. So if we can go through the tier 1 teams, and you could tell us something about them.
Oh, I feel pretty confident, and I can even tell you in the order that we're going to fight them at Carnage.
Let's go.
That's the best way for me to get the list out. So
yeah.
So we fight Knyaz first, and Knyaz, as we know, is currently second best team in the world, like best team in America, consistently rising in every tournament in every year that they fight at. Every one of their fighters are well known in our national league, and I don't know how far they are out to y'all, but Andrew McCabe has consistently been the captain there, and what they're doing training out of what I hear consistently is like someone's backyard still. They lead 2 different teams throughout our American circuit. So they have Knyaz and Knyaz Fire, and they also fight on the top level pro fight circuit. So I don't have to talk much about them, because if I had to talk much about them, you guys are failing your job, because they are popular and you should be listening to them, and they're winning. So I'll let them talk more about themselves. But next up is Dragoons, which is the newest team. We've never heard of them before. No, just kidding. But the Dragoons are a rename from the Dallas Warlords when Brennan was removed or left the team. And at that juncture, they wanted to keep going, so they have their team, the Dragoons. I know that pretty much that lineup is the same as it was the year before, minus Brennan. So you have, let's see if I can do this by memory. I don't think I can. You have Brett Skinner, Adam Harrington, DeAndre Cyrus, BJ. Oh, I should be able to do this. This is practice I'm really supposed to be good at here. Mikey Johnson, Charlie Brumfield is usually on that lineup. And then there's a couple of guys that they float between, like Sean Henson, and then the captain, whose name I can never remember. And I apologize, because hopefully he's listening, because that's the point. But yeah, so they have a really solid squad. almost every time. Their striking is relevant. Their judo is our top tier in our sport for in our nation, at least. Like with Kenya as kind of being a little more all rounder, like Dragoons push a little more into judo and what we would call teamwork plays.
Yeah.
Where they will have not teamwork plays, that's totally the wrong word, initiation tactics, whatever. I don't know exactly what anybody calls it, but think about the first 5 to 10 seconds.
Dominus style, because they've got quite a lot of former Dominus guys on the Warlords. In terms of, you've got your Brett, you've got Adam, you've got Cyrus, BJ, like they've all fought as part of Dominus, and they do very, very well as a team in those initiations, creating those little mini 2-on-1s and getting the takedowns and the overlaps, right?
Yes, they work in they break it down into 2v2s in a center, right? So those 2v2s have that initial 5 to 10 seconds that they are planning for or know what to react to, and then they react to it and work together. So if they change it since before, I mean, all we can really do is reference the past, but that is what they did when we last fought them as well at Tournament of the Castle, which was previously Tournament of the Tower, but they changed it depending because the location changed. And then I know Charlie had also fought with Berserkers for a tournament and did similar initiation plays. So I know that's like they're still training. They did get another training facility, so I'm sure unless they do a full culture shift, it will continue in that direction. So but yeah, very strong team. We're fighting literally, I would say, our top 2 most difficult fights. At least I know what their roster is likely going to be, and I know how hard those rosters usually are. So that's our first 2 fights of the day. And then
do
that'll be
you
fun.
prefer to have those tough fights first or middle or later?
Send me whatever. I don't care about the order. Like I mean, seriously, like that's how I fight. Is if I sit here and I think about I gotta plan it out this way, and this is the perfect like order, and this is like who I wish is on their line and who I don't. I'm just gonna get in my own head, and really like fighting for me is I'm looking at what we have against us. I know how my guys been fighting today, and I know what they're like. I know what they've checked in with me about. Like, oh, I have injuries, or I have this, or I have that. So I have to really play it by what I have available to me in that moment, because like, what else am I to do? So if I look across the field and I see Kenyaz and I see that lineup ready to chase us down, like we're going, and if so like that's. It can be fun to get warm-ups, like warm-up matches, as I would say, where you just get to roll people, like get into the armor, get your head into the game, like get your heart rate significantly up and back down, so that way you're ready to deal with the rest of the day. But at the same time, it's like that's me letting my own self get in the way when I have every opportunity to do better. Like I have every opportunity to say, you know what, I know this sucks. I know I'm not going to be as good as I might be later, but I have to be able to win this fight. I have to be able to fight this match. And the best guys out there would be winning this match. So I'm going to win this match, So that's the culture that, you brought together. So not to like dismiss from your answer, because it'd be nice to give you a more mathematical answer where I'm like, well, I really like when we fight those easier teams first because they get our energy levels up, but I have to win it. So.
That's great approach. I hope to one day get, because I suck ass in the first round so bad. Then I get the engine running and it's good, but the first round, so no. But
I understand.
But I will. I'm very motivated right now. Let's go. Okay,
well,
so let's keep going.
Why do you think we got the guys just to show up and start training? You just start motivating them. Okay, so next up we got the Twin City Wyverns. So that is led by Landon right now, I believe, is the captain, and they are nearby. So this is where it gets a little weird. They're a little wider out, and I'm not good at my geography, so I'm giving you the American stereotype, unfortunately. But the Wyverns are like 20-25 hours away from us. I would say maybe a little less. We will meet up most frequently when we go west from the northeast. So we have a tournament called Siege, which is a memorial tournament this year for one of the fighters who died, Alex Ding. But the previous years it was for Harambe. So they've been going around for like 5-6 years, I think now, and they're pretty large tournament as well. I might be overshooting how many years, but they had 16 teams the last 2 years. So that's been really awesome to have that many pools. And so the Wyverns will frequently come out to events like that. So we see them once or twice a year. We saw them at Way of the North for tens. We did with AMMA, and they're pretty good. They're I also got a chance to fight them in Colorado when Pale Riders, which is like it's not everybody in Pale Horse, but it's as many as we can get together plus whoever we think is cool. Come on, let's fight. That we just went out and merked 3 of us and brought in whoever they had left over. So the Wyverns did really well there, they won that tournament. It was like a 16 tournament, but I've seen a lot of consistency through their ranks. I think that we will recognize some really cool plays. I mean, just in general, there's a lot of grit and there's a lot of trying to hit good and not take people out. Like you know what I mean? Like, when you watch good Buhurt and you're like, that's good Buhurt. And when you watch Buhurt, that's like, okay.
Cars.
Yeah, I think,
and it's fine. Like, I love anybody trying to get into this, and I love everybody pushing their hardest. And if that's your hardest, bumper cars your hardest, I'm in. But when it comes to the Wyverns, I feel like they will not be pushover. I've lost rounds to them, and we'll see how it goes.
I think they've been consistently, like you say, turning up at events, consistently fighting. I had the pleasure of fighting with them in the 12s when we did Carnage in 24. We teamed up with them.
Nice.
Great bunch of people, and seeing the progress, because I think they were silver tier that year, and seeing the progress into 25 and where they're at now, there's definitely fights in there that they should win and give people really, really hard time, and it's purely because they've been consistent and they've been working together well as a team and as a unit. So I'm excited to see what actually comes out of the Wyverns being in this bracket, to be honest.
Yeah, they took us to the cleaners in the 10s as well. So like they're good. They're good and they're consistent. They train a lot. They work well together. I think Alexander King has been looking really good too on his fights. I think he's on that lineup as well. But yeah, they're like just out of my daily like bubble, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're just far enough away. So
yeah, it's those teams that just keep showing up, and they get beat most of the time, and then one day they don't, and they kick your ass. So you have to be careful about those.
Yeah, the Colorado Wardens are that way as well, and I really wanted to talk about them, but they're not on the list anymore. So, but they're doing really good too. So even if they aren't on this list, I was like, they won silver I think last year, and I went out and fought with them at that same tournament with the Wyverns, and you can just see the culture that's building out there is working really well. So, but alas. Okay, so next up is Berserkers, which the Berserkers are an interesting team specifically for us because we have basically the same exact timeline, all things considered. Like how we popped up was basically in May of 23 at the same tournament. And you also remember like my perspective, the Berserkers perspective, and then the national perspective is going to be a little different. But so if you're me in the similar area, Xander, at this moment, not Captain Xander, right? I remember that the Berserkers were run by Darius and trying to get basically like it felt like, let's get a good team together and let's fight, right? Like there wasn't a lot of overlap in communication, but I do remember like talking to him at the time. And we must have just not talked enough to have that become Pale Horse, or maybe we wanted to fight. I don't know, but it's just kind of like, I can be kind of all over the place. So if people are talking to me, like I'm right there, I'm ready to work on stuff. But if like they're off doing their own thing and there's no way to really communicate, I'm like, well, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, So in that regard, Berserkers have had a very, I don't have the right word here, but let's say like chaotic, changing roster. So it's not ever been super consistent. Even Darius himself has been in and out of injuries, so the consistency there has been low as far as him being a rostered fighter. Like you've had fighters like Zach Golden, who's pretty well known. You guys know him, that's cool. But
I don't, to be honest.
what was it?
I don't, to be honest. Sorry, Zach.
Okay, I won't tell you the story because it's too fun. I'll get too into it. Zach's great. Everybody in North America does not want to fight against him. So then they had Christopher Sanner, who's now, for example, on our team on Pale Horse. So he was on Berserkers prior, but they didn't, from what I understood, and you know, my goal as much as I can is to not talk for anybody else, but to kind of understand what people have told me and what I've seen, so that I can best represent, you know, their team, because like I do care about them doing well, and I really do want I love our opportunity to fight them. It's so much fun.
If you think
And,
Xander
you know.
talks shit, write us in the comments.
Right.
That gets the engagement running. Okay, give us more
We
hot
call
takes.
this PR shit. No, just read between the lines. No, I'm just kidding. But long story short, so the Berserkers have been a very chaotic roster that has changed like very frequently. And what we know when we go out to fight them is we know it's going to be a hard fight. We feel the energy of we have to win this. Like that is always present, because if we lose, I ain't going to hear the end of it. like that's there's a huge motivator in just like we cannot. I don't care if we lose to Dominus, but I do care if we lose to Berserkers, right? And that's like, and where that comes in is because we know that both of our teams are right there, and the only times they have beaten us are actually out of Carnage in interesting ways. So we were in the silver list in 2024, and they were the team that knocked us out of medaling for Carnage.
All right.
Right. So like that in its own right was already like a big deal. So like we're in the same place, we're trying to figure it out, and then boom, they beat us, right? 2020. But then they have not beaten us since then. Not once, right? So like we medaled at a small tournament, but no, we didn't fight them at that one. I'm just trying to remember. But basically, I know that we fight them frequently, and when we fight them, we haven't lost. The unfortunate truth, though, is if you look at the statistics, and you can all have fun with this as much as you want, I think we have like some of the highest appeal rate, especially in our matches. I do everything I can to only appeal things that I think I need to appeal, and those are where they come up. So, and they're really heated rounds. Like if, you know, like to talk about the joy that it brings, right? Like not to be, because I ain't trying to be toxic, because that's literally the point, is like, I love the competition. I love that we're all pushing our hardest. I love that, like, you get these rounds where, for example, we go to the end of the third round, it's me and two guys in a Berserkers match at the opportunity to fight White Company, right? Like if we lose, we don't get to fight White Company at all. And because White Company had flown out to Maryland to fight us, or not to fight us, but to fight America. And if we lost to the Berserkers, we didn't get the chance, right? So we're in the third round, and there's me versus two guys, and there's a pull down that happens where the guy is on the ground pulling me down, and I then was called down by the marshals, so then I appealed it. The appeal went through. Joe Cadeau, our head nation organizing marshal, not organizing, but our head marshal, appealed it, as a couple other marshals that we see pretty consistently on the scene. So like we got what looked like a championship fight, because me versus Patrick Hurd, which is one of the fighters who's very consistently on the Berserkers, and honestly also a really great fighter that I don't want to grapple with, because he's got a lower center of gravity and he's really good at defensive grappling. So like making mistakes gets me thrown over, you know, like I can't do that, because he's really heavy on his feet in a way that is it's hard to take down. So I was just trying to hit him from far away, trying to stay up, and you have like a 5-minute one-on-one match where like when we were over near the Berserkers side, like they were talking smack. It was funny, like I wasn't taking it personal, but they were talking smack, so I'm talking smack while I'm hitting Patrick with my falchion. So like you get moments like that where the competition really becomes this the reason we're all here. Like it's the reason that they want to fight and I want to fight, and why we care so much, and why the appeals happen, and why like these moments where, you know, you feel dead tired, and like, yeah, I just fought 3 rounds and got to go in against that. I know Patrick did too, and there we are, right? So yes, I took it because we had to fight White Company. So my brain was like, I can't lose. I have to fight White Company. And it wasn't even for me. It was for the experience for the rest of the team to get the chance to fight them. Because I have fought overseas. I fought at Way of Honor in 24. And I fought at Castle Belmonte for IMCF Spain in 23. and in like the 16s, but in Way of Honor, I fought in the 5s with the Executioners. We didn't make it out of pools, so that's probably why I didn't hear more about it. But whatever. But they haven't gotten the chance to fight those international teams, right? So I really had to, like, I have to win. So I have like everything on when like you just have people pushing you from every direction. That's where you get the strongest teams. Like you get those, diamonds are created through pressure, right? Like that kind of concept. Nobody cares if there's no reason to care. You got to care. So that's why we find ourselves having such like fun, trouble, rivalry, like whatever people want to say with the Berserkers, because they want it, we want it, and we're right there together. So that's fun.
Yeah,
perfect.
I mean, they won, if I remember rightly, they won silver at tier 24 Carnage.
Yes.
Last year I think they got knocked out just before the medal rounds, I think, if memory serves me right. And like you say, it depends on the roster. It depends who turns up. It depends how switched on they are, but they're definitely not a team that people can take lightly if they're if they're on the day. If they're switched on and ready to go, they'll cause a lot of people problems.
Sounds like a spicy matchup.
You want to hear another funny? Oh, sorry. What was it?
No, I'm gonna set a reminder for that. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah.
There's a funny moment, a funny little tidbit here. So the Pale Riders, just without going into a super big detail, that's kind of like our sister team. It's like the teammate, the guys who want to be on Pale Horse, but we don't really have the space to roster that way. So we have, it has a lot of things that it is symbiotic with Pale Horse with, but B team is the best way to explain it. So they actually at Carnage this year in the silver tier also lost to the Berserkers and got knocked out of medaling rounds, which was funny because they got out of their pools into the medaling rounds and Berserkers knocked them out, just like happened to us in 2024. So Pale Horse 24, Pale Riders 25.
So no more defeats for Pale Riders when fighting Berserkers now.
There you go. That's how the timeline goes. So okay, so do you want Northblood next? Is on my list.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Unless if Berserker questions come up, we'll talk about them later. So Northblood is another volatile, chaotic list of gentlemen. We don't exactly know the roster, but I will tell you I fought them for a couple years now. They are the Canadian. Right now, it's more of the Canadian Central team because the Moncton Marauders are on the East, and they just recently broke off to make their own team about a year or so ago. Hence why Northblood was originally on the silver tier, from what I understand. So the Northblood, I know, usually has Friars, Joshua Friars, which is another Dominus member. When I was first fighting against Joshua Friars, the Northblood, this was in like 2021 when I was like first starting on the Executioners, but although I wasn't on the team yet, I was just fighting with them because I was local and I really wanted it, so there we were. But Northblood had a really strong list of dudes who you just could not understand what they're saying, but they're beating the shit out of you.
Did they apologize?
No. No, they did not. But like,
another
they're great gentlemen. They're great guys. But the thing is, what I love that's so great about them is they do exactly what we're supposed to do in Buhurt, which is hit each other really hard and throw each other on the ground. And if you're broken, they're like, great, you get tomorrow. You get to fight again tomorrow because you're not dead, And like, Prague Trolls, from the small amount of understanding that I have with them and just like their like massive brutality, and like Northblood is kind of like our similar, like the Northblood guys, they're really hard to take down because pain is irrelevant to them. They have like all of them are big enough, and the shorter guys are really good they're really good at fighting guys way bigger than them because that's how they train. And then Josh Friars is really good at just running around tripping people, like getting judo. When he's alone, he's absolutely a monster, right? Like we don't want to fight him alone. His armor, he wears an Eastern kit, so I know how much you care about that, Tanny. But he has a lot of gaps, but he also knows how to fight. He knows how to defend himself. So like in reality with that team, he plays very well to their strengths. I don't know how they're going to play it this year because of that recent split to the Moncton Marauders. I believe the Moncton Marauders will be in tier 3. There was a little bit of wishing they weren't. Like from some of their guys, they're like, I just want this to be a worthwhile tournament that we drive 25 hours to. I don't know how many of them said that, but like I know it was said like publicly in one of the channels that they were hoping to move up to silver tier because they felt like they had higher skill than that, and but they'd never really fought together for BI just due to the nature of where they are, which I can't even remember the name. Like if you said where it was, I would instantly remember it, but it's like 5 hours north of Maine. So if you literally go out of the top of America where nobody is anyway, in a place called Vacation Land, you know.
Is it Toronto by any chance?
No, that's up the near Niagara Falls. So you go that one, you actually go more central and then north. So that's where Josh Fryers is. So the Moncton Marauders are not, they're just far enough away. But I don't have a good reference for Europe for you. But like I think they're like 15 hours apart, maybe 20. Like there's nothing in Canada, all things considered. Like their per capita is so small per like landmass. The amount of people they have is tiny. So long story short, they split because they weren't getting a lot of training opportunities. So we will see some of the guys that won't be on Northblood this year that have been in the past. I know Ryan Coombs is somebody that I have gotten the chance to train with. They fought. I know that Joshua Fryers and Ryan Coombs, I have a picture of them on the rail in 2023 Spain at IMCF, and it was just like they used to fight together a lot, and now we see the Toronto group have a lot of training opportunities. One of our teammates, Michael Slomo, goes up there to train because he's like 7 hours into like south of Toronto. So they are training a lot and are really getting that leadership from Joshua Fryers. So I think Northblood will consistently, as they have been in the past, still be a threat to, a threat to our victories. We lost against them at the Tower, which was the castle that just happened like a year and a half ago, I would say, for the tournament of the Tower. And we lose to them at Carnage. They're always like a consistently difficult team to fight. So
yeah, it'd be interesting to see what lineup. But you're right, they've got some very big guys that don't mind being hit very hard, and tend to ask you for more. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see which version turns up.
Yeah, well, and like Canada went through so much too, because like on the Executioners is Jean Sebastian Paul. I can't remember how to say his name. I see it on Jean Depot. He was also on Northblood back a couple years ago, and now he's on Executioner. So that's like there's just been multiple changes in their roster for whatever reason. Yeah, and all private to the all personal to each person who makes a change, right? So it's like we're going to see some pretty interesting rosters here on these. Actually, these next 5 teams are going to be pretty interesting, or 4 teams, I should say. Sorry. So Executioners. This one so we've also never beaten Executioners, which makes, to me makes sense based on like the timeline and everything. But I will also say like what's really hard about talking about this roster is we haven't really seen them fight together all year. I don't think they did a single BI tournament this year. And I know that the Knights Hall opened a second location and that they are training out of both locations, which is awesome. I know that the Headsman, which is the name of their B team, has also been able to travel and train and fight a ton. And I know that the Executioners have always had enough armored fighters to pretty much subsist on their own people, like for infinite amount of events. Yeah. Right. So like they consistently run pro fight nights where they do, it's called night fight nights, whatever. And they consistently do those show fights I was telling you about before, where it's just like, it's a simulation rounds. They do melee chapter matches. And they also are doing a lot of just like fun physical activity, and they frequently do it together. So like you'll have a lot of their guys like doing LARP together and Buhurt together, and just like consistently being around each other and really just like knowing how to gel together in communication and in personality, like that kind of stuff. So we see a lot of consistency from that team coming in from, for example, Dustin Brooks always fights with Jakub. right? Like they are on the left rail and the left number 2 or the wing. I don't know exactly what word you guys use, but the rail pair is Goodwin, who's a lefty and huge at that matter, and really good at like just snap downs and setting people up for Dustin. And Dustin, 6 foot tall, very like athletic, mobile, able to. He's had a lot of combat practice as well, so his ability to anticipate moves that other people are going to do are also pretty high. And his striking is very effective as well. So and also he's doing Muay Thai, doing judo. He's doing a lot of different of these interdisciplinary things. He trained out with like Blood Eagles, or I can't remember the name of that team out from the West Coast, but he came from the West Coast where like Johnny Porter is and like all those guys, training with them and joined the Executioners. And then on the right side is where it gets a little more hazy, because I know we had John. I'm sorry, but I can't get his name correct here, so just forgive me. But he's a good axeman as well. He's been working with them consistently. But then they had a couple of changes in their lineup, because Joshua Kearney is also somebody who is on that squad. And I know he's going through some health stuff. So like, if we see him, he's absolutely a threat, and I expect to see him, but I know that he's not been able to fight every tournament leading up to this tournament because of that. Yeah. And so, and this could, we never know when his last Carnage is, for example. Right. But his judo is extremely effective in 2v1 scenarios. He's also a very heavy threat in 1v1 scenarios. He's a bit of, like, hit him hard enough and like you can get him to sit for most of the day, but like but that is very difficult to pull off no matter what you're doing, because he knows that they want you to hit him, right? So he's not letting you, and he knows how to grapple and he knows how to get behind people. He's one of the fastest takedown people I've seen. Like, if he walks up to you, if he doesn't get you in the first 3 seconds, like, good. That's surprising. That surprises me, But again, like, and he's working with them in the 2v1s, but again, like, he's a little bit smaller, so it changes up once you get into those like bigger opponents. But then you have Cat Brooks, who's also always a wild card, right? Like, sometimes he's really, really fast and really effective at judo, and other times like his striking is on point, so we don't really know the exact team we're going to see, but we know that pretty much everyone on that line there is a threat. The other things that I've heard, and I can't tell you if they're true or not, but I can speculate, and that's the fun part, because I'm giving you a little bit of like what I'm doing as Pale Horse Captain, thinking about going into these events, right? Without giving it away to the people who are trying to counter that, I guess. Sure. But views are views, I guess. That's fun. But my point is, we apparently Joshua Brandt and Alexander Kumar Das are going to be fighting on the lineup, which would change the entire viewpoint of that team for the whole day. Like, that's an entirely different squad.
That's interesting. So Joseph and Alex,
I don't know. That's what I heard, and nobody's confirmed otherwise. And I don't, but it doesn't. That's the thing, is like, maybe you're talking to the guy who's literally going to sit here and go like, whatever they throw at me, I don't really care. Like, that's just that's how I fight. So to me, I heard that and I said, cool, but also, ouch. Like,
So what's so special about them?
So Joseph and Alex are both Dominus fighters. Joseph, 6'6", big, huge, powerful, athletic.
He's the guy who wears the blue and yellow
with the dreadlocks.
Blue and yellow, the coif and the dreadlocks that come down to here.
So they were a Way of Honor last year.
Right. I think I know now.
Yeah,
he's been seen like elbowing a dude who went down from an elbow, and you're like, what?
You said long blonde dreadlocks, right?
Yes.
And I think he's originally from LA.
Yes. He's on the Soldados, I think.
That's his team. Yeah.
I've been talking to them a lot, but I'm always so bad with connecting the exact name.
Sure.
And then obviously you've got Das as well, who again, from a fighter's point of view, as an individual is a monster, but you put him in an orchestrated, well-oiled lineup. That'll be an interesting squad if they're there. It would be an interesting squad if they're not, if we're being perfectly honest. I mean, when we fought and I know we're talking 24 Carnage, you were on the Executioners lineup, if memory serves me correctly. You had Kat, there was Josh, there was Ringo, which, to be honest, I'm glad people won't want to be chasing him around. He's not there this time, I don't think. No, he's retired.
He's done. Totally retired.
There was Chuck, there was Dustin, and then I think you had Paul as well.
Yeah, Paul Friedel.
Yeah, Friedel, yeah. I can't remember whether I'm missing somebody, so if I am, I apologize. But, you know, any iteration of that lineup is a handful without adding in Joseph and Das, right? So
we've never beaten it. I've never beaten that lineup. I mean, I you know, that 5. I don't think we've taken a round from them yet, actually. But like, that's the thing, is like, we didn't fight them all year, and this year, like, we just continued our tear. So
yeah,
every chance is somebody's graveyard, you know.
Yeah, for sure. So that'll be, again, interesting to see the lineup and, you know, the consistency, but never a team to be underestimated. I mean, last year the Executioners took bronze in the gold tier, right?
Yes.
So
yes, yep. There was also a weird kerfuffle with that year. Wasn't it that the Warlords lost half their team and the Canadians lost half their team, right?
I was gonna say it earlier on, but I'm hoping that with the new name, they have better luck at getting to Carnage, because from what I understand,
oh my God,
last year only half of them managed to show up, and they had to kind of amalgamate with Northwood.
So here's the story. Yeah. I got the story. I have the actual story. So they were driving up, and half of them were in one car that was a diesel powered car, and somebody put gasoline in the car, and they could not make it. Like, they were 1,000 miles out, right? Yeah. So that was half the team, and that was, I know it was Charlie's car, so it was Charlie and BJ and somebody else, maybe Adam. But it was not cool. It was not fun. And then the North Blood got shut down because I don't remember which political champion was like messing with passports out there, but passports were basically getting denied and letting people into the country. So they were on their way down, just like you'd expect, and they were stopped at the wall. So so hopefully the Dragoons have better luck, because I think the year before at 24 they ended up picking up some injuries very early on in tier 1 and ended up having to pull out of that. So hopefully they are full squad and have a better time of it. But the Executioners, again, a handful regardless. Every one of them has always been, and even if somebody is like coming in to support that crew, it will simply make that person have more opportunities to fight better and to hold better. Like, I mean, that's part of the reason why I got good, right? Like, it was like, there's no denying to me that fighting on the Executioners for as much as I got the opportunity to do so was part of the reason I got the chance to fight such good teams, is because like I lost to them for years, like in training, like just all, you know, you just dead, like do 20 rounds, dead, like, all day long. And then, you know, you finally get to fight together, and like, I know how they're going to work. I know what my job is. Like, okay, I hold this guy and I prepare, you know, I open him up for either a takedown from a strike or a takedown from a throw, you know, so like getting a fight with them, like they're going to have a good squad, like no matter what it is.
For sure.
So. Okay, next up we got the Vagabonds, which all I can do with this team is speculate for you, because it's led by Johnny Porter, and I thought it was in bronze tier, but I guess it's in gold tier. But I'll tell you about what I know about what they're doing. So in the northern West Coast area, they are pretty far away from a lot of different places, but they're close enough to like LA, where they might go to 1 or 2 tournaments a year, where the Soldados are Alexander Kumar Das. And I know, and I'm sure you're familiar with Johnny Porter. But one thing that Johnny Porter has been doing, and I would say better than pretty much anybody that I've met right now, is creating a squad of people that want to fight and train Buhurt like as fast as a wildfire. Like out in Portland, from what I think it's called Portland. We have like 8 of those in the States. They're all whatever. But out where he is, they went from like a training, backyard thing to now they got a list. Now they got like 30 people, seminars going on. And then they got people traveling from all over the country to go visit Johnny all the time. And everybody wants to train with Johnny. And it makes sense because he's the fucking best, but like pound for pound and everything, I mean, and he's a nice dude and he loves training people and loves working with people. So like what's really cool to see is the Vagabonds getting their first opportunity to really show the nation, the world, who they are and what they've been doing, even though it's somehow the gold tier on their first time through. So I don't know how they got to gold tier like I don't know the exact path. Maybe Danny, you do. But like I know that they have every right to deserve it if they want it, and they said yes because somebody had to literally ask them and they had to say yes. So I know that it's going to be a crazy match. I know Johnny has his entire playbook that is the Vagabond way, because like it's got different initiation tactics, different like I read through it a little bit here a while ago, but it was just different ways to go in and come back around, and different ways to create chaos and like basically known chaos. So the chaos, they don't know the chaos, so on and so forth. So it's really cool.
I mean, that again, they're headed up by somebody that everybody knows, but as a team, probably the most unknown in terms of what might and might not happen. But I'm sure, I mean, I don't know exactly why they're in gold tier, but I can assume they were in silver and people have dropped out and discussions have been had and they've agreed to fight. Look, if they've been given the opportunity and they've agreed to be in gold tier, they deserve to be in gold tier, right? That's the end of. So yeah, they
explain.
Should be good.
Huh?
Larry, explain.
Oh yeah. Well, Larry likely has across 5 different channels that we can, if you're paying attention.
This is the only one that matters.
Yeah.
So I know for a fact there had to be 10 teams in the gold tier. I can just tell you that. So I know that we had to bring a couple people up so that it counted as like the point system and BI and blah, 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 blah. Because each tournament is its own mini tournament. I also know that a couple of the gold tier teams did not stay in gold. They asked to leave gold. And therefore, some other teams had to come up. I know Northblood and Executioners were the first to come up. So Vagabonds and Pale Tempest or Bastion, one of those 3 are the teams that have now, with Vagabonds, have now come up that I wasn't expecting to see. So.
Okay.
That's all I got for you.
They'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, if someone is able to teach a random group of fighters how to win in a gold tier, it's Johnny Porter. So.
Also, just so for some context, there was this team called the Meatmen, which is a comedy team that came out of an AMCF qualifier down in Texas, and it was just a bunch of guys who like know each other enough to be like, "You're fun, let's murk it up and have fun," And they named it the Meatmen, and Johnny Porter was their center for a lot of that because I was fighting against him as I was on Tulsa Free Company with Zach Golden, and they're down in Oklahoma, which is pretty close to the Warlord or the Dragoons. Sorry. The Dragoons. They're good guys, but Johnny Porter's just like bouncing all around with like this chaotic group of dudes where they have like 3 centers, and you're just like, what the hell's going on, And like the Tulsa guys are really, really rail bosses. Like they have 2 guys on the rail like at all times, and so I'm just sitting there in the middle, like, like there's so much going on. And
guess
so I
I'll
think
die.
Johnny already has so many experiences, right? Exactly. Just don't die. Johnny Porter has so many experiences of running that play, and running like not that play, but running that style. And then he was also the captain of Team USA, so he had some experience doing it there and like learning how to work with people there. And like he's done a bunch of seminars, and this is a crew that he's been working on for a year, 6 months, whatever. I'm terrified. I mean, there's nothing I can say, but like this is gonna be wild. I'm gonna have to feed them to Blade. I'm gonna be like, Blade, feed this man. Like just but it'll be a fun one.
Yeah, for sure.
Ugh. So Bastion definitely is in the wild card territory for the gold tier. I would say that they are consistently good. They're consistently relevant, and they fight hard, and they're no slouch. I will say that the only place where they are unremarkable is in a tournament like this. which I don't know what they're going to look like because I can tell you I haven't seen them in a tournament this skilled. So I can tell you at the tournament at the castle that we saw them at last, and at Blood and Suds 2024, which we defeated them to take gold. It was a very small tournament. Believe me, it was like 3 teams, but we did fight them there.
But they did beat you at the castle, no?
They did beat us at castle, yes. So like that's where like we can give more context, and I think that we can talk about what type of a team we'll see. So Bastion they just have relatively good striking and grappling in general. I would say that they're not as classically trained as some of the more like curriculum based clubs that we might see. For example, like I know like a team that comes out of Danny George's gym, they all know at least pretty much the same thing. So what I can say about Bastion is they're a little more homegrown. They are near PK, near like Larry-ish, but not close enough to consistently train out of there. They're near-ish the Iron Lions. They're near-ish New Jersey, which is kind of where like that's where Brandon is, and that's where like the Exiles train out of there. And Pale Horse, of course, like we train there as often as we can. So we see Bastion about as often as we see Kenyas, for example, like maybe 2 tournaments a year. At this particular tournament, I would say they had pretty much the same line that I've seen for the most part, minus one. There was like a mercenary gentleman, a friend of mine, Ian Webb, who wasn't on the team, and they both have the great helms, and that and that's always really fun. And Ian Webb's like 7 feet tall, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but he was slapping people with a falchion, which was really cool. And they both have great helms, and everybody's like, great helms suck, but then these guys are just murdering you with great helms. They were at Carnage 24.
If you can't reach them, it doesn't matter.
Dude, if you ever try to head rip a guy with a great helm, we tell our guys not to. Don't even try. It just doesn't work. But sorry, it looks like I'm double fist bumping. I guess that's American of me. That's what Colin Campbell did when we were hanging out with him on stream. He was just like, yeah. I'm like, yes. I was having such fun.
He's still in there. He's still in there.
Oh my god. But so the Bastion, they've had a pretty consistent line throughout the last year or two, and they're just difficult to put down. I think that if you watch back our tape, which I watched that one a couple times, but we had a 5v1 that ended up in them getting the last takedown twice, right? Like, sorry, not 5v1, a bunch of suicide falls, which is like a bunch of guys dying in pairs, just falling over, right? I don't know what you guys call it out there.
Yeah, suicide.
Suicide. Okay, cool.
Suicide, or we call them doubles. You know, if you're both trying to fight for it and you end up falling over together, it could be a double. But
right.
If it's deliberately going for it, it's suicide. If it happens, it's double.
Okay. Well, I won't imply their intentions because I just don't know. But I know that we are a team. People consistently try everything they can to beat us. So if they were using suicides, I wouldn't fault them on it. It's just always sad to see four doubles go down, and then you have the last guy, and it's just a one-on-one that like isn't even that dramatic. You know what I mean? But it won. Like it got us from that round. From what I remember, we won the second round, and then the third round was like 6 minutes long, and it eventually went down to a one-on-one, and we took it. So part of the issue with being Pale Horse, as they did beat us, but part of the reason of being us is that we don't always have a consistent roster. So we have like 12 people on our roster, and then we just try to get the 8 that make the most sense. 8 are the best, or whatever makes sense in that particular event. Like sometimes a pair of guys work really well together, so we have one person sit. But what we do with that, like, because I'm going just to like talk a little bit more about like how we go into this. I don't want to take up Bastion's time, but like we have like just differing rosters, which I was just saying, so it's kind of relevant to say again. But long story short, like we didn't have as many of, like, we only had 7, and we were trying to do like we had like different setups that we usually had. So it was Brandon and Sloma and Dylan, and we were like, I know we didn't have Blade, which we love having, and what else did we have at the time? So like you know, it's just like how it works for us is our rosters are a little bit more chaotic from the outside, depending on how you might look at it. I guess that makes sense across most of these teams here because I've said that for most of them now. But for us, like sometimes we are going into that last tournament, that last match of the day, and who knows? Like maybe we got a guy injured, maybe we got a guy like maybe we don't have the same roster you're used to. Like you still got to be able to push for victory. If you're just going to go in afraid of the name, like you're going to lose every match you show up for.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah,
So I'm
sure.
curious. I'm curious to see what Bastion will do. I think what'll be really fun is watching Bastion fight the Wyverns, watching Bastion fight the Vagabonds, watching Bastion, you know, square up against Kenya's Dragoons, Berserkers like Pale Tempest. You know, I think like win or lose, let's see what, you know, this team can do now, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious to see. So 9 matches is a lot for people, especially because we're going from noon to 12. We're going from 1,200 hours to 2,000 hours. So like every match is like 30 minutes to an hour apart, which is just gonna be wild. So, but yeah, is there any, like, I don't think I can really answer much more about Bastion.
No, I mean, I saw them obviously in the silver list last year, and I agree with everything you say. I don't know them as a team intimately, but they definitely seem game enough to be up for it. You know, they're going to go in there and give everybody a hard fight. Be interesting to see, like you say, how they shake out against some of the teams and how they manage to resist against the other teams like your Kinyazis and like your Executioners. So, yeah, they're there
Right.
again. They've accepted. They're in it. Let's see how they get on.
Right, and like every team has to have a first year, right? Like if
sure.
their first year is amazing, fuck it. If it isn't, hey, all you got to do is try your hardest and put that next step forward, because in reality you're not getting anywhere unless you try. So
yeah, no, for sure.
And this is what Buhurt looks like when you get to the teams that really care. You know, like it's all fun and games, you know, hitting on a dude who wants to be in like a beer league or something. But like, I love the running around fighting against these matchups, but like it is difficult. You know, it is stressful.
Yeah, for sure.
When you are in the list, it's okay, but before that's where the mind games are.
True.
Yeah.
That's why you got to adopt in me like the good old ignorant American attitude. I'm just like, I'm just here to fight and have fun. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, I'm curious how some of our guys will handle it at Invitational, because they are some of them are the best fucking athletes I ever saw, but they fight for like 1 year or 2 years, so and they don't have that experience like when it really matters and everybody is out there to kill each other basically within the rule set.
Yeah.
But that's what one of the assets I have probably, or what I can contribute a lot in the team is like give that experience. I got 100 or something tournaments behind me. I can share you. I can help you work with that if you help me not get beaten to or bludgeoned to death by Bohus or someone. So, yeah.
Give him 1 or 2 jobs. Tell him to do it really well, and then go help him do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. We go. So I'm kind of the same. Oh, go ahead, Danny.
No. Go on. I'll let you finish.
I'm kind of the same in that, like, I'm more experienced in traveling internationally than basically anybody on my team for when we go to the Invitational, which we'll get to in depth at some point later. But with that, like, I have to say, okay, so how are we going to pep talk? Well, if you hit the guy and he screams in European, you know you're doing good. You know, like you have to, like, you gotta, like.
Yeah, that's only us.
You still just do Buhurt, you know. It's still just Buhurt.
It's only us not speaking English in that tournament, so chill the fuck up, man.
I said European. European is English.
Depends what part of England. I don't understand Scottish. I don't even try anymore.
It's not worth it. But the joke is like you know, who knows what we're gonna find when we get there. But like the Invitational, you're gonna have people at such different skill level at some point, because it's not like the world tournament. It's we'll get to that. We'll talk about it later. Sorry,
yeah.
I'll go
No
off for
worries,
hours. Last team, I just got a bunch of information on them because I asked them before we came here because I expected this conversation to happen. So Pale Tempest, I don't know who the fuck they are, right? So they are an amalgam of Rat Pack and their local squad. So Rat Pack, they fought last year at Gold Tier Carolina Carnage. They are very good in general. They're another one of those teams where like you're not sure what you're going to get because we don't really get a lot of footage on them, but we know that they fight hard and they fight successfully, right? They do have the funny clip of charging Samurai and getting clotheslined in the list. If you've seen that one was really funny, but does not indicative of their skill level. Also, that guy was very athletic. To be able to close on yourself in full armor you have to be very athletic. So do not scoff at how strong that he was going to kill that man. I'll tell you, but he made the cardinal mistake of charging in a straight line without being able to stop yourself.
I don't scoff. So, exactly the same thing happens to me last year. So I feel his
really
pain. Yeah,
so
exactly the same, or not exactly the same, because I was charging in to help my buddy, and they fell like 1 second before I got there, and I didn't want to step on them, so I jumped them over, and then I thought I would be able to stop myself mid-air over the list, and the gravity said otherwise. No. So I just wrapped around the list, and now I'm reminded of that every single day. Almost. When I meet my buddies, that's one of the topics you can bet on that's going to be discussed.
Start a relief fund. Be like, I need money because my life is ruined because I fell over. Okay, wait. Let me give you a little bit of this.
Pale Tempest. So they are not associated with you.
No, which is funny, right?
Yeah, I was like, oh, is there like Pale Horse B or?
That was the question I was going to ask before. Is it like any relation? Yes, no.
Nope.
I knew they were what was formerly the Rat Pack, but I didn't know how that came about.
Who wins? Keeps the pale or?
Right. Well, so the funny thing is, if you look at the two teams that rebranded this year, you have the Dragoons, which are a white horse, if you're not familiar, and a Pale Tempest, which is pale, whatever. I think that it's completely coincidental. I don't like hold this against them in any way, but to not take a moment to be like, that might seem like them. I think it gives more perspective of how spread apart we actually are, right? Yeah. So like Pale Tempest they're near Boise, which if you're not familiar with how far away that is from me, that's like 3,000 hours. That's like 40-hour drive, or sorry, 3,000 miles. Sorry, hours. Wow. It's like 31 hours driving or something like that. It's crazy. It is not close. And they're where like Joe Cadeau is in that area, because I know that there was a tournament out in Boise. So that's kind of like the West Coast network. So they train. I know for example, Kyle Olson. I don't know if he's the captain, but he's my friend who fights on Rat Pack and also is now, of course, on Pale Tempest. So he was who I was talking to about this stuff, and he won a fight on AMMA from doing like one of the cleanest judo throws I've seen. The dude freaking did a front flip instantly, and like Kyle just like step. I don't know, whatever. I'm bad with the names of judo, so for me, like I try to remember them and they do not stick. But you see greatness when you see it, and you know it's happening. And like they just generally have really good fighting out there. And I know what it is now is it's like a local team. So it's built up from a couple of different clubs nearby that area. And they did either some sort of tryouts or like a regional team. So I think like that, like just to give you some context of what kind of team we're going to be seeing is we're likely going to see a team. Basically, nobody knows who the heck they're fighting or who the fuck they're fighting or whatever. I don't know why I censored myself and then uncensored myself. That's a waste of time. But then we're going to see that, and we're also going to see people who train a lot with each other, who train a lot. Like I know Kyle Olson goes up to Johnny Porter and brings his guys up there for that. And like I know they're down near the Golden Knights, which is the Golden Ring. with the LA and Soldados, and I know Order of the Rose or Order of the Gauntlet Rose and Order Draconis is out there as well, and they're like, they could very much well be the team of Pale Horse on the West Coast. You know what I mean? Like as far as like their caliber, or maybe they're Bastion on the West Coast, or maybe they're Executioners on the West Coast. You know what I mean? Like there's no way for us to really know, because like Executioners in reality was like that New England, that regional team, right? In some ways, like just out of natural happenstance of the best guys just go there and continuously go there. So that being, but there's teams around it, you know, that just aren't as well known because they don't make it to the higher tiers. But yeah, so Pale Tempest, Rat Pack was a little, I wouldn't say they were like an easy match. I think we tied 3 rounds or something crazy like that.
If we get to the analysis, we will be analyzing that one. That was a good one.
Yeah. So, oh, cool. Okay. I remember. Yeah, you were talking about that. Okay. So, but that's all I really got on them. So I'm really excited to see all these teams though. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
So if that's all of them, 2 teams that jump out and that they are missing is, of course, Dominus. So that was the all-star team of USA, and they fought in local USA tournaments. So why don't they do that again?
I have my side, and I know Danny has what he knows, I'm sure. But on my side, if you say like, I don't think there's a reason that has anything to do with Buhurt why they're not fighting at Buhurt. Like they would still be the best team. They would still like do, maybe not the best team, but like they would still dominate the tournament. You know, they're still like fighting Kenyas for number 1. But Brennan was also a major component to that team, and he has been, for lack of a better word, excommunicated from the community, the culture. It's a longer conversation. If you're curious to know more about it, I would go learn. It's worth knowing. But also, like, Dominus, I wouldn't say Dominus was built on Brennan, but I will say that when you start to lose major components of your team, especially when you're so spread out in the same way that like Pale Horse is, it starts to be harder and harder to field, because the energy costs so much more money. It costs so much more time off work. It costs so much more, like, just travel and everything to go fight with the team. And there was no like all-star component to it that people told us. It wasn't like, oh, we're the all-star team, you know, fuck all you guys. It was kind of like, these are the guys that want to fight together. And they also happen to all be really, really good and all-stars in their communities, right? So it's like, that's how I was explaining it. That's kind of how I understood it. So it was less, you know, we're just going to do our all-star thing, and more like, hey, these guys really want to fight together. But then without, you know, with losing some of those members, and also, like, for example, Johnny Porter is having Vagabonds go, and Soldados are building up, and like I know like Joshua Friars are building up Northblood. You know what I mean? Like every single guy on that list, and Krug is retired, right? So it's like every single guy on that list has had a major change in their life that now doesn't make sense for Dominus to continue to put all their resources and energy into just getting to field when all of them are still going to get to field anyway. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think that the nuance really comes from the individual, and then over time, it just starts to get harder for everybody still trying to hold on. So it's hard to say exactly like where that goes. We also had like Craig Ivey was on for a little while, and they never really had like their 7th or 8th guy as a consistent member. Will William Bradbury, I can't remember his name. Sorry, Bam Bam, for people who know the nickname.
Woodbury.
Bill. Yeah, there. I was like, I can't remember his name.
Bill, yeah.
Like they also had him on pretty consistently, but like they basically had like 6-ish or 7-ish, and then a couple of guys that like made sense, and like I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You know, they've been fighting a long time. They know each other. They're a good fighter. You know.
Yeah, like you said, they had a core set of guys in when it was, you know, your Krug and your Joseph and so on, and then onto that you had every now and again you'd have like Bill would be there, or Das would be there, or, you know, Carnage in 2024 you had Dan Winter and Bohemil were on that squad, you know. So there always has been an interchange of talent. But yeah, I mean, I haven't got anything else to add, to be honest, in terms of why they may or may not be there. I think what you've said is probably probably accurate from murmurings, but that's it. It's all whispers, isn't it? So,
Right.
yeah, they're not there, but they are there because if you look at the lineup of the tier one kind of teams, you could get a Dominus lineup and a half out of people that are on those other teams, right? So, yeah, it's interesting because it opens the field a little bit. I know everybody's looking at Kinyas to be like, don't drop the bag because they've been up there the last few years, but everybody else has
Drop the
got a
bag.
good shot, right? Everyone else has got a good shot at this.
The sun will
would
set
you
on
say-
Peñas.
As we talk about Kinyas, would you say that maybe part of the reason was that Kinyas fighters were not ever part of Dominus, or not recently at least, right? They stuck to their own thing.
I would say that the reason they're so good is because they know what they all want together. Like they're very teamwork centric. They have their own culture. So yes, I would echo that. What you're saying is because they've stuck together, they are a more powerful team, and now did so well at Hungary, right?
Yeah. And so,
The other thing is that like they don't have meta style fighting or culture fighting that everywhere else in the country has, because like their footage is a little harder to find unless you fight them consistently, right? Because they're training, they're not on Dominus, they're not like all over the world yet, and now here they are. So
I think when you look at it, Kinyas have built an all around, like a team that's good in every aspect of the sport. They can strike really, really well. They've got really, really good world-class runners. They've got really, really athletic big guys, like that aren't just rail huggers. They're chasing people down and they weigh 300 plus pounds and they're train wrecking people and getting them out of the list. So I think as a team, they've been so successful because they've been so consistent in building what they need for them, comparative to, what other people have done and a lot of teams have done, have seen what Dominus created, and Dominus did a really good job of passing that knowledge on to other teams through other trainings and seminars, but a lot of people still went that way and lent into that a lot. Whereas Kinyas, they can do that, they can negate that, but they can also do 2 or 3 other things a lot better than most people as a team. So yeah, I think the reason they've been so successful is because of the amount of effort they've put into building a team, a well-rounded team based on who they've got as individuals.
Yeah, I don't know if that point came across properly as I wanted. That Dominus felt like it's a team built to win, and if they don't win, what's the point? Or that was my impression. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how it felt to me.
Yeah, it's hard
that
to say.
Kinyas proved.
That
Kinyas proved the point that you don't have to make all stars. If you stick to it and you keep working, you will get there. So now the guys from Dominus want to do that with their own teams.
Right. I can definitely understand that too. It was hard for us because, sorry, if you want to go, Danny.
No, go on. You're right. Go
on. It was hard in the beginning when like getting onto the national scene and like recognizing Dominus as like, oh, well, I'd really love to see what the Warlords look like right now, but they're missing Brett Skinner, Brennan, Adam. They're missing 3-4 of their members like on to Dominus. So now it's like we don't get to see what the Warlords were at the time, and like that kind of stuff changed the landscape of some of our matches, but I don't think it was like maybe it was that way. So like there's no intention of refuting your opinion there, Jacob. But
no, that was my impression. I just wanted to say that how it felt to me. So maybe if there is a speckle of truth in that, I don't know. I'm just a European. Yeah, well, and to your last point that you don't see the actual roster of, for instance, Warlords, if there is a Dominus. That's basically what's going on with my team, because our best guys were part of Czech Lions. Then for the Czech team 2, we were also putting together rest of the guys from Mamanci, from Prague Trolls, from whatever. So there is basically no tape on the actual team that I have, and it pisses me off the most because I want to watch it. I love watching us win, but maybe it's also an advantage that people can't watch tape on us. But I'm just looking forward to fight at their full strength and just steamroll people. But
it's good to have balance.
That's there is no point. I just wanted to complain. Okay.
Check lines like complaining. Just kidding. Take my notes.
Yeah, and to that point, Czech Lions eliminated Dominus. So
wonderful job.
In Hungary, I wasn't on that roster. That's maybe why I'm complaining.
Part of being it's when we get to the national stage, you get the whole nation behind everybody. That's part of the fun, right? So yeah. We had to support Kenya's though. No, just kidding. They're great.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for the. Well, I'm out of English.
It was good. Some fights.
Yeah.
Good analysis.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
good analysis, a good introduction into the tiers.
Yeah.
Tells you a bit of the landscape of everything.
Before we move on to the fights, which we'll get onto in a second, let's just give a couple of honourable shout outs. So silver tier, Kenya's Fire, always been up there. Order of Draconis, not in tier 1 this year, dropping down into silver for whatever reason. Definitely a force to be reckoned with. The Headsmen, as you said before, obviously those guys should turn up, should do really well. The Florida Men, they've got significantly better over the last couple of years. And like you say, the Monks and Marauders looking like they're going to be in silver tier as well. And then you've got the usual, your Plaguerats are in there, your Tired Dogs of War, Cincinnati Barbarians, Tulsa Free Company, and many more. And then just looking at tier 3, your bronze tier, Vagabonds have another team in there, Vagabonds Errant. So that'll be an interesting one. Awesome Possums are there as well. Atlanta Valor are there. Akron Hedge Knights are there. Hellhounds are there. So, every one of those tiers is going to be good to watch. Top tier, tier 1, it's going to be tactical. Every battle matters. Every one-on-one matters. Every takedown matters. In the silver tier and getting down to the bronze tier, your tier 2 and your tier 3, it's going to be pinball chaos. And it's going to be great to watch. So regardless, shout out, obviously it's not an exhaustive list, there are other teams, but for everybody who may be listening and watching us, make sure you tune into every tier, give everybody a good watch at Carnage, because you never know, you might be fighting them in the list at some point in the future. So let's get into some fights.
Hey guys, the episode took longer than I expected. It's almost 3.5 hours, so I decided to split it into 2 parts. This part was discussion with Xander, then the second part, releasing in about, a week, will be analysis of some nice fights from Carnage 25, and then a little bit more of discussion with Xander regarding his predictions for Carnage 26, obviously, and invitational and some short little other topics. So thanks for Xander. If you didn't yet, you probably did, but do check his podcast out and cross your fingers for Pale Horse. But I think the episode will come before Carnage, so that's fine. Thanks for listening and see ya in a week or so.